There's an ancient story of a student who went to the master and said, "I pray, I study, I meditate, do my daily rituals, and I even fast a little. I live in peace with others. Teacher, what more can I do?" The master rose, lifted his hands, and stretched his fingers out towards the heavens, when suddenly they became like 10 lamps of fire. And he said, "You can become all flame." Welcome, I am Jareth Tempest, mystic, magician, psychonaut, astronaut, hierophant, all-around seeker of truth, occult author, full-time weirdo, and host of this show, where we talk about mysticism, the mystical journey, and all that's magical in the universe, everything from spirits to spirituality, while I take you on a magical mystery tour through the inner world, and hopefully inspire you to take that next step so that you can become all flame. Alright, well, welcome to the second episode of the show, and we're going to dive right into the deep end this week. I had considered, building up to this episode or something, but really, this is foundational stuff. We need to understand divinity and God and who God is and what these concepts are, and then we'll build up from there, or really kind of come down from there. It's just like I said, it's the foundation that everything else comes from, and so because it's a question that I get on a fairly regular basis. Is which God is God? Is it this pantheon, or is it this one? Is it Zeus, Odin, Vishnu, or just Yahweh? I get, because of especially after I released the Yahweh attunement, a bunch of people so is this an attunement with God? And recently I saw someone asking for an attunement with Allah, and there's just obviously this is a big question that people have. Which God is God, and who is God? What's his name? So we're gonna dive into that question this week and see what Raziel has to say about it. But first, I wanted to remind everyone, since I forgot to do this last week, that I do have a Patreon. Where you can support me if you like the show. At the $5 level, you get early access to the podcast. Technically, right now, I'm in the process of moving, so things are weird. I'm barely getting things up early, but once the move is done and I get settled in, I should be able to get things uploaded in a much more timely manner. But there's a lot more than just the podcast on the thing. I've got years worth of path workings and rituals and stuff. A lot of the information that's in my books is there for free if you haven't already bought the books. Which leads me to the next thing. I have several books out. I have 2 books on path workings with angels and archangels. I've got another book on the angels of omnipotence. And my newest book is The Filthy Grimoire, which is about using magic to help improve your sex life. And then I also have a store where I sell attunements to various spirits. And what that is, it allows you, I create the connection to you and another spirit in which you can channel the energy and all of the powers of that spirit. For people that are familiar with Reiki, it's like Reiki, only imagine that Reiki is just a spirit. Now, with what I'm doing, you'd be able to channel the energy of, say, Archangel Michael, just like you would Reiki, or Astaroth, or Isis, or any number of different spirits and deities and angels, demons, and genius spirits. There's like 200 on the store now. So there's a wide selection that can, there's a spirit for pretty much any problem you might have that can help. So give that a check. I'll put all the information in the show notes or description and stuff. So yeah, if you could check those out, that would be great. All right, now that we've taken care of the business stuff, let's get on with the topic of the day, which is, who is God? Now, obviously, this is a question that mystics and seekers have been asking for, since humanity gained consciousness. So I'm not expecting to have all of the answers. That would be really presumptive of me to say that I have the answers and everyone else is wrong. So always take into account, everyone has biases. We all see things through a filter. And when we're talking to Raziel is speaking through my wife's filter. But that being said, we tend to get answers that are different from what she believes. And this is actually one of the areas in where we got answers and that were different from what she believes. But you can also see that's why some of the answers seem to be struggling, because whenever we summon an angel and it's trying to speak through her, it always has to try to speak through her mind, and it has to use the vocabulary that she has. And some of these concepts were not very familiar to my wife. It takes a little bit to get some of this out, but the answers, as far as I'm concerned, were fairly conclusive. And then based on the information that I've gathered from being, a contemplative mystic for decades, I'm able to fill in the gaps, I guess you could say. So, I guess the place to start is to say that most people, like the common people's idea of what God is wrong. There's not a man in the sky who's judging you if you masturbate. He's or whatever it is. There's no one. Well, I'm not gonna say there's no one. God is bigger than that, and you can almost say that God is not. He's definitely not an anthropomorphized man in the sky. He's not even a personality. And so I've always kind of felt like, you see this in a few different places where people would not try to say what God is, but they would just try to say what God isn't, or what you couldn't do to describe God. Like, God has no name because there's no one to give him a name, and no name could encompass everything that he is. God is not a person, or God is, they would even say things like God is not love, because love is such a small human concept compared to the enormity of what God's, quote unquote love would be. I feel like that's a starting place, and that's a beginning. You're really beginning to get a concept then that we can't understand what God is. It's too big for our little human brains to try to grasp. And so, but then you kind of, it leaves things a little too open. So we need a little bit more than just to say, well, God is not like us or anything that we can imagine. Because this is true. However, we can take that and we can extrapolate more information. And so, I mean, just to kind of sum up where we're at right now, there's no Sky Daddy up in there. Well, there's actually a lot of Sky Daddies. This is the thing, because we do have like Zeus, and we have Odin and Thor, and these father god figures. We have a lot of, in our Indo-European roots, you have the idea of the Earth Mother and the Sky Father, and then the two of them combine and then create life and things like that. And so and then that story was kind of passed on to all the different cultures through the world. And so you kind of see this repeated motif over. So we the idea of a father in the sky is a very ancient one, but it's a limiting thought. And while yes, these entities are real and there is something there, but it's not the complete picture. That is a God, not the God. And that's why there's so many of them, because none of them are the one. And so sorry if that, hurts anyone's feelings or anything. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but there's something bigger than any one culture's idea of a god, or a goddess for that matter. It's just so much more than what we've been taught. So when we talked to Raziel, when the concept of divinity came up, this is what Raziel said. And this is how Raziel first described what we would call God. The ultimate divine, the nameless, faceless, wordless, all-encompassing, all-loving, all-terrifying power, the sleeping giant that owns us all, that doesn't consciously interact. It's busy, but it's there. And, that was an interesting first hint of what, God is. There's a lot, there, but it also kind of paints this kind of Hindu version where, like, this parallels like Vishnu, who is sleeping and everything is happening within Vishnu. There's a sleeping giant. And I believe, and then later on it would be clarified, this is more of a metaphor. It's just this idea of a universal mind. And Raziel will go into more detail there. So, don't take things literally when you hear something like that. A lot of spiritual concepts are spoken metaphorically. And like, take the Old Testament. It's, the more that you understand Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, and as you go further back, because Kabbalah is actually not as old, anywhere near as old as like the Old Testament. But, when you start looking into ancient Jewish mysticism and things, you start really seeing that they really like metaphor, and they layer metaphor on top of metaphor on top of metaphor. And so this is why you can't take, the stories in the Old Testament literally, because it's all, they're using this history of the people as a metaphor. And then within the story are all these different metaphors and stuff. I'm not saying that it's totally fiction. It's like, it's all true, and some of it actually happened. But it's all true. Through the metaphor and the different layers of scripture. And this is true of pretty much all scripture. You have, these truths that are being conveyed through these metaphors, and sometimes it's layered metaphor that you have to spend a lot of time, going through layer by layer by layer. And so even just talking to Raziel, we're getting a taste of that here. So we have the ultimate divine, and this is something we would take that phrase and we would use that when talking with Raziel to get more, that became our word for God with Raziel, as the ultimate divine. And in my usual daily work, if you ever see me posting or something, I'm talking about God, I very seldom use the word God. I tend to use the word divine with like a capital D, just to help people understand I'm not talking about a deity. Divinity is bigger than a deity. So we were talking about names and how God, it doesn't have a name, or, and these words that we use, they fall short. And so, because later on Raziel would say that there's no name for this. It's too big for names. Names put you in boxes. They put you in limitations. So you can't. So this can't be named. And this is very true. If you can name something, there's a sense of you understand it. And this is something that you can never understand. You can have a concept of that you can understand, which is about the best you're ever going to get. But then as you get that concept, you're going to see that there's no name you can put to it. So Raziel would then go on to say later, God is the air we breathe, the molecules. We are made of God. It's everything. And then even later he would say, it is meaning carried on energy. It surrounds us. It's through us. Is what we are made of. It doesn't think about us, though. There's no consciousness the way you would understand it. And entities are different than human consciousness, some more than others. God is entirely different. It doesn't think, but think of it as the brain. All sorts of cells and structures, and everyone has different jobs to do. They're like electrical impulses and chemicals that send signals back and forth, relay information. There's an awareness, but the brain is not the awareness. Here we begin to get an idea of like, we're all within this universal mind. And it builds the structure. I mean, and like our reality is the structure of this mind, but it's not the mind. It's not the mind itself. It's a created thing, and that energy that moves through everything is still there. So that energy, it's still there, and there's an awareness. She says, and again, she keeps pointing out, it doesn't think, and at least not the way that we do, or the way that spirits think differently from us, then God thinks differently from spirits. It's something so far beyond anything that we can imagine. I would then, well, actually earlier I had asked, I'm taking this a little out of order because I think that a lot of the information was given out of order in a way that is easy to understand, and so I'm kind of restructuring it to help, stair step it. So then I would ask, would you say that God is non-dual? And this was a concept that my wife had not heard before. And so there was a little trouble getting the information out. And so then I would rephrase it as God is presenting itself as reality. And Raziel says, yes. Okay, so what this means is everything is God. If God is non-dual, then there is nothing that is not God. There is only God. There's only one, and you can't divide it. There's only the one. And as God is an infinite being, then there is only that infinite being. And so you can begin to see how within this infinite being, there is a universal mind. And then within that mind, we are all everything is taking place within that mind. And this is still a metaphor because in that it limits God. God is bigger than that mind. I think that's the clarity. Like that mind is a step down from what the full limitless potential that is God. And so this is kind of the next thing we need to kind of talk about is this. We have this idea, and you see this in Kabbalah, and it comes from Neoplatonism, and you also see the same thing in some Gnostic texts, where there is the non-dual, like the ultimate divinity, and then that is infinite. And then the problem that the ancient people had was, especially the philosophers and thinkers and stuff, is that you have infinity here, and then beneath that you have our finite world. And how do you reconcile a finite reality with an infinite God? How can infinity touch something that's not infinite? And their answer for that was, well, there has to be intermediary steps. And this is where you get the concept of the tree of life with the different Sephiroth, and that divinity pours itself into Keter, and then it goes to Hakma, and on down until you get to the actual physical world in which we live. This is a useful metaphor. It's just a tool that we can use. Now, again, I mean, I say metaphor, but at the same time, it is real. But we'll get to that later because, well, like I said, everything is God presenting itself as reality. And so that tree of life does exist, but it is still it exists as a metaphor that we can use and even it still exists in the spiritual realm, but it doesn't need to be there to function because God needed to use that to create the finite world. That is what they call emanationism, where God emanates through these different stages to get to where we're at. Whereas what I'm saying, and what it seems to be what Raziel is telling us, is that we simply are God. There's no stages between it. Now there's separation, but the separation is more out of our perceptions or our lack of truly perceiving the truth. And everything that we recognize as a thing outside of God is a separation. And so my computer desk is, I use that as an example a lot because it's what's sitting in front of me. So like my computer desk would be my idea that it is a computer desk and that I can see it and touch it is separating me from the fact that it is actually God. And so when I described in my last episode about that experience I had where the desk, became nothing and became God, that was the truth. That was that separation that was keeping me from seeing it. I was able to dissolve that, at least momentarily, so that all I was perceiving was God. But at that time, I was unable to perceive God, so it was just nothing. And so, but this gets you to the idea that everything around us, every person, every object is really God acting like a rock or acting like a person. This is just the reality in which we need to start thinking in, because at first it can almost be horrifying, because it makes everything feel unreal. Or you can take the attitude of it makes it more real. It makes it, now you understand the true reality behind it, and then you start to see that it doesn't matter as much. If everything is God, then and God is all encompassing. It is creation and destruction. These are just not symptoms, systems that he put in place, and it's bigger than even that system of creation and destruction. But all of this cycle of life and death, creation, destruction, these are all, it's not like a war between good and evil. It's simply God, and it is what it is, and it's all going to be okay because it's all God, and it can't be anything but okay. So in a sense, he's like, just relax and let things be, and don't worry about everything. Don't take that as like that we don't need to try to make the world a better place, or that it's, you shouldn't be trying to make your life better or anything like that. Just that don't let the things that are apparently bad in your life or in the world get you too out of whack. It's all okay. It's going to be okay. Now, part of the reason I believe that we are here, that the reason that he has manifested the reality that he has here that we are in, is to give us the opportunity to try to make it better, and to try to better ourselves and our lives and the lives of those around us. And so please don't think that I'm saying it doesn't matter that but that you shouldn't, just don't let it get you down. You know, you need to look at it, from that positive angle that we are all gods because we are all God. And so you need to get into touch with that within you and begin to see the truth inside you, at least, if not the rest of the world. And when you do that, then you can start, when you can start seeing that everything is God and you are God, then you can begin to realize that reality is what we make it. But the problem is reality is what we all are making it. And at some point, we have convinced ourselves that it is the way it is. And so we need to change that. And we need to, when we realize, and that's what magic is. This is that we can change reality and we can make reality into whatever we want. But the thing that we have to do is first change that, our belief that it has to be the way things are, and then we have to change other people's ideas of what reality is. And this isn't anything that's going to happen in any one lifetime, obviously. But we all need to, and this is a part of making the world a better place, is that, it's not just about helping the poor and trying to end world hunger and climate change. While those are all good and noble pursuits, we also need to be trying to change people's understanding and the nature of reality. And science is finding out more and more. The hologram theory seems to be very popular right now, and it basically says that everything is just a projection based on 2D information that's being, that can be, an infinity away from us. And I won't get into the math because I don't understand it, and I'm not going to try to be one of the people that uses their misunderstood idea of what quantum mechanics is to explain magic. It just doesn't work. I don't think you should do that unless you can do the math, and I can't do the math. But just pointing out that science does seem to be backing up a lot of what spiritual people have been saying for a while with things, all kinds of things. But yeah, we've got, the idea that the world is the way it is. It's only that way because we've been taught it, and the people that taught us were taught that all the way back, somewhere back. I don't want to give the implication that, there's no way of knowing why it's like this beyond or how it happened. You're not going to get anything beyond a kind of a mythical metaphor of a story. And the thing is, it doesn't matter why it's like this or how it got here. It is the way, reality is the way it is, and we have to face it for, as it is, and then try to make it better. And, we do that by understanding that we can change it. And you just have to change your mindset and try to have more of a magical mindset, and then try to spread that awareness that magic is real, and that, it's just our habits that keep magic from being as real as it really is, because of our disbelief and other people's disbelief and belief that, everything is just, solid and is real in and of itself, as opposed to just an illusion that's there when, hiding God. And because God is behind everything. And so that's a glorious idea that I think is I think more people are realizing it. I think we used to believe it, and then we lost it, and now I think it's starting to come back. Or I think that at least the potential for it is starting to come back. And I think that people are starting to wake up to the idea of this possibility that we can change the world. But yeah, everything is one more concept I want to get across is that yeah, we all create reality, and so when we all do it out of our habitual idea of what reality is, and so while you might change your idea, the other people around you are still keeping theirs, and so the reality is like it's a consensus that we have all agreed on. And so what we have to do then is start spreading the news that this isn't how it needs to be, and we do that through spreading magic. And then this is one of the reasons I write my books and I've created this podcast is to spread this message in one way or another, that where the world doesn't need to be this way. It can be much better, and there's so much magic in the world, and we can make things so much better. And this is, I really think that this is what we're here. Like I've and we'll get into this later. I think there's different places within reality. Like there's this world, and then there are other worlds that are better or further along. I think if God is infinite, then there's probably infinite worlds, and there's all of these different levels to it. And this should be thought of more as like a spiritual boot camp for your eternal self that's going to be moving through these various worlds. But just because we're in one of the rougher boot camps, whatever, doesn't mean we can't make it better. Like, I mean, even in the military, boot camp has changed over time. Like they don't abuse you the way that they might have used to. And so we can do the same thing here. We can make boot camp a little nicer, at least. All right, well, so that was a lot. So I'm not going to keep trying to pile information on you and stuff, but this is really just kind of scratching the surface. But like I said, this is sort of the foundation that we're going to be building on. This is the once you begin to understand the nature of divinity for real, then you can start understanding how reality is structured and works, and why it doesn't why it's just much more complicated than most people want to acknowledge, and why we have so much power. So much of what we need to do in this life is if you're trying to be a spiritual person, is to learn to live and operate out of that power. And that's why we do practical things that we can use in our life to help manifest this power. And so we're going to start talking, now we're going to talk about something practical that you can do where you can start changing the reality around you. And the thing that you have to remember, usually the way our minds work, we need to start small and then build up. It's very difficult for most people to believe suddenly, like, I'm a god, I can change reality and just like make doors disappear with their will or something like that. It doesn't work that way. Your belief changes slowly, and usually there's a lot of subconscious beliefs that need to change. You might think you believe it consciously, but deep down there's just multiple levels of you that might not believe it. And so that's why we start small with small things, and we build up to those bigger magic, to that reality changing type stuff. So at first we mainly want to try to influence magic, use magic to influence things and manifest, physical things or spiritual things or whatever. And so one of the best places to start with that is with sigils and mantras. And this, the basic concept of this, it's been around forever, but it was kind of articulated by Austin Spare and then adopted by the chaos magicians. And it's become kind of a cornerstone of chaos magic. And so what we're going to do here, we're going to say, you try to the first thing you need to do is figure out what you want. And for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to say, I want $100. So the first thing you're going to want to do then is try to write your request. And you want to write it simply, and you don't want to try to explain how you're going to get $100. You're just going to say, I want $100, but you don't want to say, I want $100, because, then you're just going to manifest wanting $100. So then maybe you might think like, okay, well, I will get $100. That's more, about me getting it, which is a good step, but you're still leaving it in the future tense where you will get it, and you might end up manifesting it coming to you in the future, but you never get there because the future is always the future. And so you want to put it in the present or past tense and say, I have $100. So then that's your request. So you write that down. And then you're going to delete or mark out all of the vowels and duplicate letters. And when you do that, you end up with H, V, N, D, R, L, and S. So what you would do at that point then, if you're going to make a sigil, is use those letters and combine them in a way to make a picture. Or just a little pictograph. It doesn't have to be a picture of anything. In fact, the less it looks like anything, the more effective it's going to be. And so you just want to kind of combine it and flip things around, turn things upside down, and put it all together. And then once you have it all together, then go in and you take that and you copy it, only this time simplify it even more so it doesn't, so it looks even less like the letters and stuff. And it just becomes even more and more abstract until you get to a point where when you look at it, you can't see anything from the original request there. It's just a total thing. Another way you can do this that's easier is to say, I have $100, and then as you're saying it, to make a few quick marks with a pen or pencil on paper and just make a scribble, and then you can take that scribble, or you can modify that scribble, and that can be your sigil. But you just need to create an image out of your request in a way that your subconscious will recognize that has transformed, that meaning of that has transformed into this symbol. And then what I do though is because I meditate so much, I tend to not work in sigils as much as I work in mantras. And so what I do is I would take those letters, the H, V, N, D, R, L, S, and then I would rearrange them and add new vowels back in to create some short words. And when I do that, I get Lond Hus Rav. And then then that's my mantra. And then I can just meditate with that mantra or chant. You could chant it or, do whatever you want to do with it. But what you want to do with either the mantra or the sigil is get to a point where you're not thinking anymore, where it can absorb into your subconscious without conscious thought and being in the way. And so you need to get to a point where you're in that flow state, or you're in the zone, or whatever you might call it. I can get there through meditation. I can also get there when I'm working on art, or some people, when they are exercising, they'll get to a point of exhaustion where the endorphins hit, and then you can look at the sigil when in that state, and then it'll what they call fire the sigil. And you don't have to really do anything so much as just get yourself to the point where it will, your subconscious will absorb it without the conscious mind in the way. And of course, then there's the way that a lot of people do it is through, is sex. You can, when you reach orgasm, you look at the sigil, and, at that point, your mind should not be working very hard. It should just be lost in the ecstasy. And so you'll fire the sigil. And so yeah, and of course, the joke would be that, everyone masturbates on sigils to change the world. And so, I mean, but that is a valid, way of working. It'll work, but you got to find what works for you. It could be, with meditation, or it can be chanting or dancing or exhaustion, or just, whatever works for you. And you're going to hear me say that a lot on this show, is there is no one way fits all with almost anything. And this is, I don't want to get lost in another tangent, but you need to trust yourself. And because I get so many people, they're like, well, is it okay if I try this? And it's like, they're not asking me if I think it'll work. I mean, they are. That's what they think they're asking me. What they're actually asking is permission to try it. And the thing is, you don't need to ask me for permission to try it. Just try it. It's fine. And the worst that'll ever happen is it doesn't work. And especially with stuff like this, this is never going to manifest in a way that is bad for you. It's always going, because this is you doing it. You're not going to hurt yourself. This is never going to manifest in a way that will hurt you, because you're the one doing the manifesting. You're not going to hurt yourself or the people around you for whatever little thing you're asking for. So don't worry about that. That's just not a problem that you need to stress about right now. Whenever you're doing, sigils or something like that, just... Sorry, my dog is in, has just come into the room and is being loud. But yeah, just don't worry about how things are gonna, might hurt you or whatever, because it's not gonna hurt you in any way. There's nothing to be afraid of. And so feel free to experiment and to find your path and what works for you. And if there's a particular thing in your life that, really just gets you there, gets you to that flow state or whatever, use it. The only one that I would say is probably not safe is driving, even though it's fairly effective. So technically, if you wanted to take a sigil and kind of maybe put it, where you can see it without looking away from the road, like, at the top of your windshield or something, you could just glance up at it. That could even be an effective way of firing it. But you just, that's the one area I would say is probably dangerous, is trying to do this while you're driving. Otherwise, feel free to experiment and to, just find what works for you. And then don't keep trying to look for other ways. And once you find ways that work for you, just go deeper into that practice. I mean, sigils is just the beginning of a much bigger practice that we'll get into. But it's a good place to start if, you're not already, haven't already found, a path. But again, this is all just a place to start, and to make some of the ideas that we talked about here about understanding that you can change reality because, of your divinity. And then I mentioned earlier, we have these different names of God and stuff. And like in the Kabbalistic sense, they would create these names, or they would discover these names. But what the name is really just a tiny bit of divine power. But it's because you can't use the full divine power. It would be like breaking a dam open and trying to control the flood that would pour out. So think of a divine name as like a faucet in that dam that has access, that you can get access to that power that you can use safely. And so they've created these names, and then what I have done is I'm beginning to take some of those names and give attunements with them so that you can have a more direct connection with the power behind and the energy behind those names. by the time that this is released, I will have a couple of more of those names out, and we will have the 22-letter name of God, which is incredibly powerful, and people have been having some great reactions to. And then we're also going to have one named Aya, which will be really good for helping you get into find that divine power within yourself. And then we're going to have Adonai, which will help you connect with things. The power literally is it opens portals or gateways, but when we say that, we tend to think of it in terms of what movies have taught us, or Rick and Morty, and it's not like that. It's more a way of letting power in and letting power flow to you, and it helps you create this flow of power from different, like you can for and this is why you'll see Adonai in like in old invocations and stuff, and it's not so much that you're trying to use this powerful name to command an entity, as much as you're using this name to open the door to that entity, so that its power and personality can flow through you, and then together you can manifest whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, if that makes sense. So both of those will be in the store, and the link to the store and the Etsy store, and all of that will be in the show notes or the description. So check those out. I think that's all I've got for this week, and I'll see you next week while we continue to go deeper into these into the various topics that I have talked to these spirits about, and hopefully you'll be able to take something from it and set yourself and the world on fire.